Good morning, everybody. Or as they say here, morning. How are you? Everybody good? All enjoying Microsoft Ignite? Yes? So you want to be certified, huh? Well, you come to the right place. Okay, so who am I? Welcome, first of all, welcome along to this Cert exam prep. 7346. This is Managing Office 365 Identities and Requirements. My name is Andy Malone. I'm an MVP of 12 years. I'm also a Microsoft trainer of 21 years. You don't get that for murder these days, do you? But there we go. I'm from north of the wall, as you can probably hear. Not your wall, but the Hadrian's Wall. I'm from a wee country called Scotland. A little place called Stirling, home of William Wallace. They filmed Game of Thrones there. They also filmed Outlander there. And it's also home to a castle where they filmed Monty Python and the Holy Grail. So there we go. I'm a regular Microsoft Ignite speaker. I'm doing a number of sessions here this week. I wear two hats. So I wear a cybersecurity hat. I specialize in cybersecurity. And I also specialize in Office 365, strangely enough. I know, it sounds weird. I've been working with Office 365 for over 9 years. Originally when it was a little product called BPOS, Business Productivity Online Suite. And you know that marketing guy doesn't work at Microsoft anymore, right? I train Microsoft partners. I also train internal staff worldwide. I train data center staff. And I also train the Microsoft Help Desk staff as well. So, and today what I thought we might do, you know, I could show you slides upon slides upon slides about Office 365, but I'm a demo kind of guy, so I'm going to show you some demos, all right? Now, for the purpose of this particular class, what I've done is rather than do the demos live, because some of the things can take a long time to actually work, I kind of pre-canned them just a couple of days ago, so I can talk around them, all right? So that's the plan anyway. And some of the demos I will do live as well. So we're here to really talk about exam 7346, and we're here to get you on the track for Office 365. This is a double back-to-back session. So this one is the identities and requirements, and then the second one is all about the applications and, well, the servers, the Exchange, SharePoint, Skype for Business, all that aspect of it. And I want you to get through this exam, because here at this week at Microsoft Ignite, of course, you get 50% off. So hey, I'm a Scot, anything to save money. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So by the end of this session, you can understand the certification program. For the purposes of the number of slides, I've hidden quite a number of slides here. So if you download the slide deck, you'll notice that there's some slides that I won't show, because otherwise we'll basically be here all day. I want you to be a better exam taker, so I want you to, you know, be able to do this exam, yeah, I think you'll be good. There's an old saying, there's no experience like experience, right? That's true. And Office 365 is definitely one of those services, one of those, I'd say it's a product, but it's not really a product. Of course, yesterday Satya announced Microsoft 365. In other words, that's just EMS, Office 365, and Windows 10 bundled together to make a new product called Microsoft 365. But fundamentally, Office 365 is still Office 365. Microsoft certification, do we have anybody who's never taken a Microsoft exam? Anybody never taken a Microsoft exam? Okay, all right, cool. Don't worry, you'll be absolutely fine. So basically, the MCSA, Microsoft Certified Solutions Associate, basically you need 2 exams. So you need the 346, 347, and you will become a MCSA in Office 365. So you think about it, by the end of the day, you could be an MCSA. Yes, absolutely. So obviously by attending this little class here, by going downstairs into the hands-on labs, you can get some real hands-on experience with it. All right. Now, so the exam basics, 40 to 60 questions. I'd say 50, 55-ish kind of questions, to be honest. They say 1 to 3 hours, on average, 2 hours, 20 minutes, 2 hours-ish is what you should allow. You can review the questions. Again, what you might find with some of the questions, certainly the 347, it's in sections. Yes? So you can only review the questions up until that section, and then it moves on to the next section. All right? The passing score is approximately 700. Good tip of advice, when you go in and you do an exam, you get a whiteboard that you can, read the questions. My number one tip, read the question. Read the question fully. Don't just rush it and just go, yeah, the answer's B. Read the question. I always write down on the whiteboard A, B, C, D, E, and cross out the obviously wrong answers, and then read the question again, and then choose the best answer or answers. Okay. Okay, so all questions have a consistency. Again, there's a problem. So Bob is the administrator of XYZ Corporation, blah, blah, blah. The goal statement, they're trying to achieve this, one or multiple correct answers. So you might find select the best 2 answers. Select the best answers. That's the worst one, where it's select the best answers, because you're not sure, is it 2, is it 3? And sometimes you'll get drag and drop answers. So what are the correct procedures? So things like some of the PowerShell questions, most of the PowerShell command is already done. You just need to drag the correct bit into there. Okay, and the thing about PowerShell is it's, say what you see. What is it you're trying to do? That's the easy way to remember PowerShell. There are also multiple distractors. There's the obviously wrong answers. So again, you got to kind of work out what's the rubbish and what's the good ones. And again, that'll come with experience. Questions are not designed to trick you. So there's no tricks in there. So again, be aware of that. Each question is worth 1 point. There's no partial credit, so if you got A and B right, but you didn't get C right, then the answer is wrong. There's no points deducted for incorrect answers as well. General tips, don't drink 20 cups of coffee before you go in for the exam. Make sure that you don't take your phone or any electronic gadgets with you. You'll need to put them in like a little locker. It's a closed book exam, obviously, and any cheating in the exam, if you try and cheat in the exam, so if you've got a long shirt on and all the answers are up your sleeve and things like that, then you will be disqualified, potentially disqualified from exams for life. Okay, so be very careful with that. All right, they take that very seriously. One thing about 365 is, the GUI changes faster than I can change my socks. So a good tip is to learn PowerShell, because the PowerShell is typically quite stable. So PowerShell was first introduced I was talking about it this morning, by a chap called Jeffrey Stover, who's here at Ignite, and Jeff's a really nice guy, very approachable chap. He invented PowerShell. He's PowerShell God. So he does a great kind of PowerShell 101 session. I don't know if he's running it, but if he's running it, he normally does. Go and see it. It's awesome. Or at least download it. Okay. 346. Okay, so what's 346 about? Okay, so there are a number of things. Provisioning Office 365. So there are a number, basically with Office 365, there are services. So the services behind Office, of course, are Exchange, Skype for Business, you've got SharePoint, and of course, you've got Exchange Server as well. And at the center of all of this, we have Azure Active Directory. Azure Active Directory, think Windows Explorer, think that the C drive would be Azure, and then when you sign up for any kind of Azure service, it creates a folder or a container, yes? In other words, it's a tenant. So you are a tenant in Azure, okay? So whether you create a tenant in Azure or 365 or Intune or whatever, it's still the core of Azure Active Directory. Okay, Plan and implement networking security in 365. Manage cloud identities, so creating end users in the cloud, but also taking the scenario that we've got a little company here who's on premises, and how do we get this company who's on premises into this thing called Azure Active Directory? And are they going to migrate, or are they going to somehow integrate into 365? Again, that's something that you also need to think about as well. So we're going to implement different flavors of identities using Azure AD Connect. Now, at the moment, the exam covers password sync, or as it's sometimes referred to as password hash sync, using Azure AD Connect. It also covers Active Directory Federation services. But what we're also, in fact, we just launched it this week here at Microsoft Ignite. It's called PTA, Pass-Through Authentication. Now, that's not in the exam yet, but I can bet your bottom dollar that it will be in any day now. So I'm going to show you a demo of it, okay? And if any of you have used ADFS, this will change your world forever. It's beautiful, okay? So we're going to talk about implementing single sign-on, okay? And also you need to understand what the difference is between same sign-on in lowercase and single sign-on in uppercase. What's the difference, okay? And I'll explain that to you, okay? The full exam kind of specifications and so on are there on the links at the bottom of the slide, okay? Finally, we're going to talk about troubleshooting 365 as well. I know what you're thinking. We're in the cloud, dude. What could possibly go wrong, right? Okay, so we'll talk about that as well. So first things up, we're going to talk about provisioning tenants in 365, adding and configuring custom domains. So a couple of things here. First of all, get the tenant right. So as I've mentioned, we know what the services are. So what they do, what Microsoft does, is they take those services and they then put them into plans. So for example, Exchange Plan 1 and Exchange Plan 2. So Exchange Plan 1 might be for, let's say, smaller businesses, whereas Exchange Plan 2 might be for more enterprise plans. And it might include things like, let's say, the ability to put a mailbox on legal hold, the ability to do an archive, and so on. Also, the Plan 2 plans may include unlimited storage, whereas the Plan 1 plans may have a limit. So you see what I mean? So, you know, if you're selling this product or moving your customers, the worst thing you can do is, oh, here's a small business plan. Okay, right, okay, how are we going to do that? Now, unofficially, I can tell you that if you had a small business SKU in 365 and you called up Microsoft support and said, hey, we're taking on 1,000 new people, we want to migrate to an E-plan, this is the picture of the support professional in the Microsoft data center. Really? Yeah, so get your SKUs right. For the lower end business plans, the limit is 300. 300, very important. And in the E plans, E3 and 5, for example, it's unlimited numbers. So get your SKUs correct. So, Andy, what do you mean by SKUs? So what they do is they take these obviously plans, so Plan 2, Exchange, SharePoint, and they put them into SKUs. So yeah, I'm sure you've heard of an E3 SKU and an E5 SKU. The best way to learn about what do these SKUs do, Andy, is basically go to the portal. So if I go to my, let's say if I go here, this is office365.com, of course. So on office365.com, we home stuff, we don't do anything with that. If I go to business, they show you, let's say, see plans and pricing. And in here, you'll see this is just all the, gosh, the American ones are so cheap compared to the UK. I'm being diddled, dude. Okay. So these are the small business plans, okay? And you can see what's included. So services included. So look at this, yeah? Email hosting, 50 gig mailboxes. So that's an exchange. That's an exchange plan 1. Yes, do you see that? So that's the difference between it. So again, you'll be given a question in the exam. You know, Bob wants to do this. He's got this number of users. Which plan would you use? All right. So you'll definitely, in terms of provisioning. Another thing that you can do is I can click, this one here is for enterprise. So this is where you can go into the enterprise plans here, all right? $8, really. So you can see, by the way, a lot of people say to me, Andy, whatever happened to the E4 plan? There is an E4 plan, but it's a hosted plan through a third party. So typically in a country where maybe Microsoft doesn't have a major presence, a third-party vendor may do it. So it might be AT&T, for example, that do their own hosted kind of version of it. So again, the plan that I'm demoing today is an E5 plan. So again, this is a great place to learn all about it. Again, definitely click on more details. You can see you get really, really good details there. No, thank you. I definitely don't want to chat. Okay. And incidentally, one important thing about 365 is when you sign up to the form, it says, there's a little checkbox that says, do you want to put your phone number in? As soon as you click send, your phone will ring, dude. I'm serious. They are really on the ball, okay? So we scroll down at the bottom and you can see I can buy it, of course. You can try it for free. Now, quick tip, Andy's #1 tip of the day. Never just click buy. I know Microsoft, I'll never work at Microsoft again, but there we go. Always take the trial, okay? It's because you get 30-day trial. And at the end of that 30 days, you can put a credit card number in, but you're not billed, and you get another 30 days, right? For free. So you could get 2 months for free. I didn't tell you this, okay? So at the end, however, the way it works, all Microsoft services, remember these 3 numbers, 30, 60, 90 for everything, right? So at the end of 30 days, if you've not subscribed, your data will stay in Azure for 90 days, 90 days, all right? So at the end of 30 days, if you resubscribe, yeah, but if you've not subscribed by day 60, okay, what will happen is that account will go into reduced functionality mode, and your data, you'll still be able to download your data will still flow, but you won't be able to edit anything. You won't be able to do anything with it, all right? And then after 90 days, your data is gone, all right? So just be aware of those little things. So provisioning, everybody cool with that? Yeah? Okay, so once you've signed up the form, you'll get something that looks like this. So this is your main portal, of course. And again, depending on the SKU that you've signed up for, will determine what features and functionality that you've got. As an admin, of course, we're interested in the admin center. And this is my admin center. This is where everything, all the exciting stuff takes place. Okay. Let's flip back. Okay, so again, provisioning question. Here you go. You're a global admin for Contoso, huge organization with 2,001 employees in multiple countries. You have to sign a 365 plan. Which one would you choose? And the answer, of course, in this case, would be an E3. Okay, because it's over, you need unlimited users. So be aware of that. All right. Okay, Office 365, you do not require a full Office client, but it must support legal hold. So again, E3 must support legal hold. Yes, E3 supports legal hold. Or anything that's a plan 2, okay? So C is the answer in this case. DNS. It's amazing how many people get confused with DNS, okay? It is quite confusing, isn't it? Okay? Remember, DNS is nothing more than a referral system. Yes? So if I type in, I've got a machine called bob.microsoft.com. When you type in www.bob.microsoft.com, it actually goes to bob.microsoft.com . So there is a dot at the end that you don't see. There are 13 root name servers in the world. Okay, so that query would then go to a com name server. So, do you know where Microsoft is? I have no idea where Microsoft is, but I know where the com name server is. So where is Microsoft? Okay, the com name server knows where to send it to the Microsoft name server. Okay, and do you know where Bob is? Yes, Bob is on my network. Okay? Now, the thing about DNS, I got to tell you, there are 3 reasons why Office 365 fails. Number 1 is DNS. People don't understand DNS. I'm going to show you that in a second. Number 2 is digital certificates. You don't know how to do digital certificates. And number 3 is human error. That's it. Those are the only 3 reasons why 365 doesn't work. So we're going to talk about configuring DNS. And the only way to do that is to show you, right? So here I am in my portal. Actually, just before I just go back, one thing I want to say is that remember what I said. When you sign up for 365, you sign in and it says, do you want a tenant name? Dude, it's a folder. It's a tenant. It doesn't mean anything. Yes? So Bob's Boats. Okay, I'll call it Bob's Boats. So Andy at Bob's Boats, but it gives you you get a standard Microsoft domain name. So bobsboats.onmicrosoft.com. It doesn't mean anything. And the first thing is a customer is going to say, hey, well, you know, we actually own bobsboats.com. Can we use bobsboats.com? Absolutely. So what you do is you basically need to put a record into Office 365 which essentially proves that you own bobsboats.com. All right? And all it is just hooking. It's just a hook. Yes? And this is referred to in the industry as a managed domain name. A managed domain name. How many can I have? How many domain names can you have in Office 365? So if you were supporting multiple customers. Yes? No, it's not unlimited. It's actually something like 99,000. Some crazy huge number. Yes? So you know, if you and you would only do that, by the way, if you were a Microsoft partner. All right? So in the portal at the moment you might see users and contacts, but if you're a Microsoft partner, you'll see tenants as well. So you can manage your tenants. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my portal here, and I'm going to come into Setup, and I'm going to go and click on Domains. So this is where you add in your managed domain name, and I'm going to type in my domain name here. And in this case, it's lab12345, and I'm using this 0365ready.com. So I then say, okay, add the domain name in. And it then says, okay, you need to prove that you own this domain name, and it gives you a text value, hint, hint. I copy that text value, and I then flip over into my live DNS server. This is my live server, my public server. And I need to go into here, I right-click, and I'm going to create a new text record. Okay, so a new text record. I click on Create, and I just simply paste that in. I don't need a title. I click OK, and I'm done. That's it. That's all you do. And I now flip back to the portal, and I now need to click on Verify. Okay. And as if by magic, it says, yay, you own that domain name. You can see the second light has gone green. And now what it does, it now says, okay, do you want to put in other records? So are you using, for example, other DNS stuff here? So things like, am I ready to put in my, I'll just pause this. Are you ready to put in your MX records, your mail? So if the company that you're bringing across has Exchange, okay, and they're migrating, at the moment, this is the scenario that I'm using. So my company is here, but I'm not ready to bring them across yet. So do I need to update these records? No, of course not. Okay, I can just leave them, and mail will just continue to flow here quite nicely. Okay, for Exchange, by the way, you need 3 records. Okay, and again, they show you, the nice thing about this screen is it shows you all the records that you need. An MX record is the mail exchanger, so that shows me the server or service where your email is. You need an auto-discover record, which is just a CNAME or an alias record, and that points to autodiscover.outlook.com, all right? And the third one is an SPF record. This is if you want to take or use the spam filtering features of 365. So they're the 3 records that you would typically need, all right? So once you've done that, okay, and in this case you can see, if I was just moving to the cloud, by the way, you would need to add in all of these DNS records in, okay, all of them. But as I'm not, I'm just really just setting it up at the moment. I've just said, no, that's fine. Now it says incomplete, but I'm happy with that. I'm good, right? Okay, so now that I've added that in, okay, I can now go back into my admin center. So I can switch over to my admin center here, and I'll just refresh this screen. And I've just got a basic user here, so I'll just click into here. And you can see that, there's my tenant name, so on Microsoft.com. But what I can do now, of course, is my managed domain name is now in there as well. So you can now choose your managed domain name if you wanted to. Again, the reason I'm not choosing it is because my mail records have not been brought through. And that's it. That is exactly how you add in a text record into DNS. All right? Like I say, I could talk about it all day, but now you've seen it. All right? Okay. So, quick question then. You're the email administrator for Fabricam, preparing to begin your mailbox migration. You're about to register your domain. What type of record would you put in? And the answer, of course, is exactly. Okay, there you go. Okay. Okay, here's another one. You're the administrator, blah, blah. Okay, what is the auto-discovered DNS record type and value you need to select an option in each column? Okay, so what is it? It's going to be what? Okay, it's going to be CNAME, and it's going to be... There you go. Okay, you got it. Cool. Okay. So the next thing then is configuring users in 365. So let me just show you a quick kind of user demo. Now, of course, users, you can create users in a number of ways. I can create them manually. I can also automate them as well if I want to. So I've got some users here. So I'm going to add a user. I'm going to create this user. I'll call him Bones McCoy. Did I put that in right? Yeah, okay, so Bones and Bones M. And you can see it's picking up my true domain name here. Again, I'm just going to choose on Microsoft because I've not moved his mail yet. In fact, no, you know, I'll keep that. You can auto-generate the password for him. You can put some contact information in. You can assign a role, which is what I'm just going to talk about in a second. So a role, do you want him to have any kind of admin role? The other thing, what type of license do you want this user to have? So a question I often get is, do I need to give the user a license? Do I need to license the user? So what if you're bringing like 20 or 30 users? Hey, I don't want to pay for a license if I don't need it yet. So one of the things you can do is you can create this new, this is called create a user without a license, okay? So I can just go ahead and create that. Question is, can the user still log in? Absolutely. The user can still log in, but they'll get an error message. That could almost be an exam question, couldn't it? Yes? Okay, so I can send the user an email. The user will get an account generated. All right. Another way to do this is you can also do what we call a multiple import of users. So if you click on the More option here, you can import multiple users. And what it's looking for is it's looking for what we know as a CSV file, a spreadsheet, right? It's a database. So you can download a blank CSV spreadsheet with the labels that it needs, or you can basically download a blank one. So Andy, what does that look like? You know, that's a great question, sir. Thank you. Okay, so if I go into here, I'll just go in. I actually do a masterclass on 365, by the way. It's my own masterclass. It's not the Microsoft course, sorry. So if I go into my materials, into my labs, you can see that I've got a little spreadsheet here called bulk 2. So if I go into my bulk 2 file, let me just zoom in there, I'm also a Friends fan as well, yes? So you can see here, the most important thing for 365 is on how you identify your users. So all users in 365 must be identified with a UPN, user principal name. In other words, the live DNS name that you've just implemented. Yes? So you can see here I've got Ross and Rachel and Monica, but you can see that I've actually filled in the information here. So now that I've created that spreadsheet, I can go back to the portal, okay, and I can now browse and import that file. And what that now means is, do I have it here? Yes. So here's Joey. I've just imported Joey. So when I click onto Joey, you can now see that if I go into, let's say, display name, let's have a quick look at his details. You can see that all that information has now been brought in from that spreadsheet. Okay? And so that's what we call a bulk import. Now the maximum number that you can bring in is 2,000 per spreadsheet. Okay, so the maximum number that you can bring in that method is 2,000. All right. There was chat of them increasing that to 15,000, but I don't think that's been done yet. So 2 quick ways of creating users. All right. So you can bulk. This is just cloud, of course, cloud users. All right. Alrighty. Okay. So yeah, next one then. Okay. So roles. Let's talk about very quickly. Let's talk about roles. So back in my portal, the one thing that you can do is I can click onto Joey, and you've got this thing called roles. So this is what kind of admin functions is Joey going to have. So is he going to have just a user, so he's got no admin rights? Is he going to be a god? Yes, so global admin. Or is he going to be one of these customized admins? So again, you can give these customized admins here. So he can just be responsible for billing or for passwords and things like that. All right? Please note that if you ever hear the term Azure Privileged Identity Management, okay, if you've got Azure Active Directory Premium, okay, one of the features that you get is something called Privileged Identity Management. And what you can do here is you can say, okay, Joey, I'm going to make you a temporary admin, okay? And let's say he only needs it. So he's a temporary admin, but the role is only activated when he clicks into the admin center. Yes? So it's waiting for him, but when he clicks onto it, then it activates. Okay? Please note that's not in the exam. but if you hear that term, that's what it means, okay? So, roles, very important, okay? So, a role. The nice thing about roles, again, is that you can lift somebody out of one bucket and put them into another, unlike the old kind of assigning them to groups. And the problem with the groups, of course, it's permissions are cumulative. Things can get awful messy with that. Okay, so just a little bit then about adding users and roles. Is everybody deliriously happy so far? Yes? Are you still awake? Okay, cool. All right. So, again, question then, you need to delegate administrator rights to your Alex to reset passwords, but not to be able to reset passwords for other administrators. So one important thing, which role is the only role that can assign other roles? Global admin. And again, the password administrator, you can only assign roles for users, not for administrators. Okay, so they're very restrictive roles. All right, and that's commonly known as RBAC, role-based admin control. All right. Okay, so you can see, there you go, the answer was A in that case. Now, so I just spoke a little bit about their managing cloud identities, managing users and security groups, and also managing cloud identities with PowerShell. Okay, so in the second session today, I've got a whole bunch of PowerShell slides in that you might find useful as well. All right, so let's talk about, what am I going to do here? I'm going to show, password management. Now, remember, thus far, we're only talking about cloud users, okay? So nobody else. This is just purely cloud users. So essentially, when I go into a user account here, you can, of course, when you set up that user, you can set up that user so you can view their passwords. So I can reset the user's password manually here. When you set the user, it will randomly generate a password and so on. Can I do it for multiple users? Of course you can. You can either select and click multiple users, okay? Or you can actually filter the users as well here. So you can have different, so for example, if I just created 50 users and I had them unlicensed, you can actually just filter for unlicensed users here as well. So you can do lots of bulk things. And you can also add your own custom views here as well. All right? So you can do that. So that's kind of, we've talked about roles. Another thing, by the way, that's quite new, just to let you know, is you can also create something called a guest user. Guest users are external users in Office 365, okay? So things like contractors or customers and things like that. And they don't need an Office 365 account, but they do need a Microsoft account. So that it's just a way of authenticating them. This can be quite useful if you want to, if you create like an Office 365 group, because with an Office 365 group, you get like a little SharePoint site to go with it. So if you want to share out content with guest users and things like that. Essentially what it does, it sends them an email and it invites them as a guest user into the system. It's very cool, actually. And then they need to respond to that. And what it does in Azure, it creates kind of an on-the-fly tenancy for them. So they're not Office 365, but it kind of creates an on-the-fly type of account. It's very clever, okay? So guest users. Contacts, of course. Contact is just a contact. This would appear in your global address list. So if you've got Outlook, any contacts that you have, rather than adding them in individually, if you add them in here, everybody will basically see them. So that's that. Oh, one other interesting thing just to mention, if I take Bones McCoy and I decide, you know what, I don't want Bones McCoy anymore, I'm going to delete him. So I go ahead and delete him, and then suddenly you realize, oh, I didn't mean to do that. All right? So worst case scenario, he's gone. He's gone, actually. So what's actually happened is he's actually gone into something called the recycle bin. And the official number here, by the way, is he will stay in the recycle bin for 30 days. Okay? Beyond that, he then goes into a secondary recycle bin. Now, officially for the exam, it's 30 days. Unofficially, I can tell you, it disappears from here and it goes into a second bucket that could be pulled back by the data center. Okay? It is possible, all right, for 90 days. So just be aware of that. Okay? So I can then say, I want to restore this user back, and basically it will restore everything back from that user. All right? Now, Andy, is there a way to delete a user account and keep the mailbox and things like that? That's a different story. I'll talk about that in the second segment this morning. All right? Is everybody okay with users? All good, yes? Okay. Okay. Manage cloud identity. So we've talked about cloud. This is just cloud. The other thing that I could mention here as well is groups. Okay. So groups, if I go into groups here, and if I say, hey, you know, I want to create a new group. Okay. So I go into groups, and it says, do you want to add a group? Okay. So what kind of group do you want to add? So a distribution list is just a distribution list, right? A security group is like the old Windows Server security group, and you can also have a mail-enabled security group. An Office 365 group, however, is slightly different. It's a security group, but it also gives you access to a whole bunch of stuff, right? So if I go ahead and create a security, an Office 365 group, let's say I go into my Outlook here. Here's one I made earlier, of course. And if I go in here, you'll see that if I go into groups, I have got a quality training group here. Okay, so this is my group. So I can go in and I can start a conversation. I've got a calendar. I can download the apps from the App Store. I can connect apps. I can view files and folders in OneDrive for Business, and it's just for me. It's for a team. An absolutely awesome feature, by the way. Very powerful. All right? So that is what we mean by Office 365 groups. Almost a bit, do you remember, anybody remember Exchange? Anybody use Exchange in the past? Do you remember the public folders? Yeah, okay, so it's like a grown-up version of that, okay? It's an absolutely awesome piece of kit. So groups is really great. All right. Okay, so moving along then. Do remember the PowerShell. I'll show you, I've got some hidden slides with PowerShell commands. I'll make sure that you get all of those. All right. Okay, so what about the scenario if I have got Active Directory on premises? Okay, how do we deal with Active Directory on premises? So that's just kind of creating stuff manually, which I just shown you. I mentioned adding in unlicensed users. So this is a relatively newish kind of feature. This is great, okay? So you can assign an unlicensed user, and that is the error message that you would get. That would make a good exam question. Okay? So if you get a problem like that, you know what's wrong. The user's unlicensed. Okay, restoring and deleting users, just mentioned that there. So there's Joey. I deleted Joey, and you can go to the restore and you can bring Joey back. Office 365 groups. Remember, these are groups that are stored in Exchange, in SharePoint and in Azure Active Directory. So whereas if you just created the old security groups, what's the difference between an Office 365 group and a distribution group? A distribution group is just created in Exchange, and it's just used for distributing mail, okay? Whereas an Office 365 group, you get basically a SharePoint team site, you get a shared calendar, you get a shared mailbox, and you can share apps between you. It rocks, okay? Very cool. I don't know if it's been released yet, but I can tell you that in an upcoming release of SharePoint, when you create sites in SharePoint Online, it will now automatically create an Office 365 group. Okay, that was one of the issues with SharePoint. It was a lot of people didn't understand SharePoint. They are making SharePoint a lot easier to use. So I don't know if that's done yet, but I can tell you it's coming very, very soon. Go ahead. It's okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Yes. It's like, you know, like a public folder. It's essentially like a mailbox, like a public folder, and you can, you know, like if you were an IT department or something like that, you could have an Office 365 group called IT support. So you could have like a shared calendar. You could have a shared website. You could share, you know, like support documents in there. It rocks. Seriously, it's really good. Okay. There is a gotcha, Andy. Andy, there's got to be a catch. There is a catch. Anyone, by default, can create an Office 365 group. Woohoo! Okay. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh my God. Okay. Surely I can stop that. You can. Okay. There is a PowerShell command that you can run. You can't stop it through the GUI. Actually, I'm telling you a lie. I am telling you a lie. You can't do it in the Office 365 GUI, okay? But if I go to Admin Centers and if I go to Azure AD, this is now my Active Directory Azure AD Admin Center. Again, you get users and groups, okay? But you now get to see a lot more settings, a lot more group settings. This is really useful because in 365, you would need to do PowerShell for some of this stuff. But here, there's a GUI for it. So just be aware of that. So in the GUI in 365, if you go to the Azure, there are additional options. Okay, just be aware of that. Okay? Okay. Okay. And you can actually disable, you can say, okay, group, Office 365 group creation, you can switch it off in the GUI here. All right? You type in, you just go into Admin Centers in the portal, and then come into Azure AD. Yeah? And if I go into groups, see I'm in, where am I? Let me just, yeah, see self-service group management. Users can create security groups. No. Okay? Users can manage security groups. So you can say, I want to select certain users. Users can create Office 365 groups. No. You see, it's disabled by default, my one. Okay? And again, this is available. I'll show you again. Just close that down. So once you're in the Azure Admin Center, you can see all your users here. It's the same users. It's all just, you know, it's all Azure Active Directory. But again, you've got your group settings. And in your group settings here, you can also, oh, that's new. Great. Okay, that's great. So I was talking about where you can now set a time limit on your, I knew that was coming in, but I wasn't sure if I could talk about it. So you can actually set up a group lifetime. So you can actually specify group membership by lifetime. That's awesome, okay? So yes, I'm going to make you a member of the Password Admins group, but only for 30 days. like that. Okay, cool. There you go. See what I mean? Blink and the interface changes. Yes? There we go. Okay, so let's just flip back to my presentation. So that is Office 365 groups. It's all PowerShell, baby, as I said, right? So everything, everything can be done through PowerShell. Basically, all the GUIs are built on top of PowerShell, okay? So do remember, though, that you need to use PowerShell. You need to add in the MSAll get-MSAll Microsoft Online module, yes? If you want to do Exchange, you need to use the Exchange Management Shell. If you want to do SharePoint, you need to use the SharePoint Management Shell. If you want to use Skype for Business, there is a Skype for Business Management Shell. So just to confuse everybody. All right. I'll talk more about PowerShell and the commandlets in the second part of today. Okay. So why PowerShell? Okay, a blind one-legged monkey's uncle who's on crack cocaine could run this. Okay, it's really, really simple. Okay, so you can do bulk editing, you can filter data, export data. It gives you way more functionality than the GUI would ever bring. PowerShell is awesome to use. Like I say, go ahead and if you can see Jeff Snover's session, go ahead and see that. So, one interesting thing, MSAll, Microsoft Online User, okay? So do you want to create a new -MSAll user? They're coming for me, aren't they? Okay. Do you want to get information, so get-MSAll user? Do you want to set, or do you want to create a new, or do you want to remove a user here? So, okay. So that's just some kind of tips and tricks. I won't go through all of these, so I'll let you look through these later. Very important. Azure, what if I've got Active Directory on premises? Okay, how can I get Active Directory into the cloud? So there is a little tool. It's called Azure AD Connect, formerly known as the artist known as Dursync. Again, it's an appliance. So I can install it here, I connect here, and then I can just basically bring everything into here. All right? So you can sync everything in, and by default, when you sign up for 365, you get what we call Active Directory Basic. Active Directory Basic is one way. Yes? If you get Premium, it means that users in the cloud can reset their passwords, and it would reset back to your Active Directory on-prem. Okay? Do you need that? Depends what you're doing. Depends on how complex your systems are. All right? So let's talk about how we can configure Azure AD Connect. And this is basically what we're going to do here. So I've got a domain on premises. I'm going into my Active Directory users and computers, and I'm clicking on More, and I'm clicking on Directory Synchronization. Okay? So, first of all, here I am on my AD server. And one thing that you need to do is I'm just going into Active Directory domains and trusts, and there's a problem, on-prem.local. It's non-routable. So what I do is I right-click and go into Properties, and you can see I've added in my live UPN, my user principal name, the domain name that I've registered. That means that my user accounts will now sync across because they'll have the correct UPN. All right? So let's go into Active Directory Synchronization. And what will happen is it will then download the tool. Okay, so here's the tool. It takes you through a little wizard and so on. First of all, is AD right for you and so on. Okay, so let's click Next. You can do a custom install, so you can specify, for example, and if you've got an existing SQL server and So just a quick mention about that. Just bring this over here. Just a quick mention. What does that mean, SQL Server? By default, when you install this tool, it installs it with SQL Server Express. SQL Server Express is maxed out at a 10 gig database, and you can't cluster the database. So if you've got more than 50,000 objects in AD, okay, users, groups, whatever, you're going to need to have a SQL Enterprise license, okay? So just be aware of that, all right? So you can also set up a service account here as well if you want to. I'm just going to kind of click next and just go with it at the moment. Okay, so on we go. Off we go. Chug, chug, chug. This can take about 45 minutes, by the way, hence the reason I've canned this demo, because you don't have 45 minutes. Okay. Actually, this particular demo is my lovely assistant Vladimir at the back, who's actually doing it secretly. Okay. Okay. So, any time? Come on, Vladimir, hurry up. Goodness sake. It's done through the portal. So when you click on the Active Directory synchronization, it actually downloads it through the portal. You can also download it manually as well. Just do a search for it. So now it says, okay, how do you want the user to sign in? Do you want to do password synchronization? Do you want to do pass-through authentication? Do you want to do federate? Or do you want to not configure? What is password synchronization? So what it does is it takes a it takes your password, it takes a SHA-256 hash, okay? It takes that hash and then it runs it through an MD5 hash, okay? It's that secondary hash that's transmitted over SSL. So your password is never exposed. And what they do is in Azure AD, they compare the MD5 hash with what the value, the original sync value, to check that it is you, okay? So your password is never exposed in the cloud, okay? So by default, what it does, this method, rather than us manually provisioning all the user and groups, okay, it takes the users, groups, and if you've got Exchange, it takes all the mailboxes and it creates contacts in Azure. So it copies everything in to Azure. When it brings it into Azure, or Office 365, same thing, it doesn't license the users. That's the key thing. Yes? So Bob's account might have been moved to Office 365. Why can't Bob sign in? What's wrong? He's not licensed. That could be an exam question. Okay? All right? So, yeah, so there we go. So I'm going to just choose, so as I say, you've got 3 identity options here. I'm not choosing, no. So you've got PTA, you've got ADFS, and as I say, password sync. I'm going to show you them all, by the way. So I'm going to click on password sync. So click next. And on we go. Click it, Vladimir, come on. Okay. You're a bit slow, really slow, come on. Okay, so click it. There we go, okay. So the next thing that it's going to do is it's going to say, okay, I need your Office 365 admin. Okay, you have to be a global admin for this, by the way. So you need to put in your global admin credentials. And then it says, okay, you can see it's detected my Active Directory. I need to just put in my credentials, which I've just done. Okay? And now it says, okay, your domain name, I can't use the on-prem, but I can use the additional one that you've just added. Yes? So again, very important. By default, it's looking for that UPN from the user account. Andy, can I use another attribute? Of course you can. but be careful with that. It could be a nightmare for you. I would just go with the UPN at this stage. I click Next. Now, do you want to bring all your domains and OUs in, or do you want to filter them? So again, you might just want to bring in certain departments or branches. So this is great. So you could never do this in the old versions. So you can do this now. So I'm just going to say I want to sync all domains and I want to sync all the OUs in. Uniquely identifying your users. So this is if you have multiple forests, okay? And how do you want to bring in the multiple forests? Can I just mention with multiple forests, things like mergers and acquisitions, if you have multiple forests with Exchange, you need MIM. This will not work, okay? You need MIM, Microsoft Identity Manager, all right? For the purpose of this little demo, I'm just going to assume that we're all just on one friendly little forest, okay? Again, you can see I can customize the attribute that I'm going to sync with. Again, for the purpose of the demo, I'm just going to accept it. Doesn't matter, you need MIM. You're right, you're right. TBC. That's a very good question. All I know is the Exchange team, anything to do with multiple forests, it creates an inconsistency that Azure AD Connect can't handle. And it's one thing that you need like a premium license for. Okay. Okay, do you want to sync all users and devices? So yes, I do. I'm also planning to do an Exchange hybrid. And again, if you're in Azure Premium, you can also do a device write back here as well. So if you've got devices like in Intune and things like that, you can do a write back here as well. So again, I'm just selecting a hybrid deployment here, and I'm going to just click Next. Okay. So, ready to configure, and off we go. So off it goes. You're absolutely, yeah. I do actually show that in a demo in a second. You're quite right. Now, one important thing, by the way, you must enable your recycle bin in Active Directory on premises. So you need a minimum of Windows Server 2008 R2 for this, okay? So you need to enable your Active Directory recycle bin in the Active Directory Admin Center on your domain controller, all right? The reason being is because what was the time limit that users would go into the recycle bin would be? Okay, so imagine it, right? You've synced into the cloud, you delete a user on premises, okay? It deletes the user in the cloud and places that into a recycle bin, but you've not got the recycle bin on premises, so you permanently deleted the user. There's an inconsistency. Get it? Yeah? So you'd need to switch on that recycle bin on-prem in order to be able to fully restore the user. Just be aware of that. It does. Yeah. Okay, so let's just flip that on. Okay, so we're good. We're good to go, and off we go, and we sync, and that's it. Okay, so we've now synced, and if I go back into my portal, just refresh the screen. And as if by magic, they all should appear. Just give it a second. Oop. There you go. Just move up and refresh it. Come on, refresh the page. There you go. Refresh, refresh. Come on, Vladimir, you're a bit slow there, man. Come on. Okay, so you can see all those accounts have come in, and they're all come in unlicensed. So obviously I would need to go into Bob, and I would need to then license that account for Bob. Okay, so just be aware they come in, but they're not necessarily licensed. So select a location. So where is Bob's account going to be stored? And you basically license him, and he's good. One thing about the sync scheduler, by the way, or the Active Directory sync, it syncs by default every 30 minutes. Okay, you can change it, but it's not supported. You can make it lower, but it's not supported. You can do a manual sync by using start-AD sync cycle. I don't know why they did it. It was so good they named it twice. If you type in policy type delta, it will just do a delta sync, so just the updates. If you do a policy type initial, that means it will do a full refresh on it. Okay. Okay, so again, there's a question there. I'll move on from that because we're running out of time. Single sign-on. Okay, so what does single sign-on do? So single sign-on is slightly different. It uses a token passing scenario. And this is basically how to set up Active Directory federation services. So on my DC here, or on my DNS rather, I've created a DNS record for the local server. And on my I've also created a user account called ADFS service. Okay. All right. So, and that's going to be my service account. And on my TMG, which is my live DNS server. Oh, I tell you what I've just done. I've just run a little PowerShell command here that basically makes that Active Directory service account, this is actually a service account. It forces it to be a service account. Okay. In TMG1, I've also created another record called FS in my live DNS server, and this record is pointing this time to my public IP address. So two records that pass like ships in the night. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit now about Active Directory Federation services. So just let me start the demo. So what is ADFS? ADFS is essentially a token passing service. Okay? So in other words, if a user on premises needs to connect to Office 365, basically the user would come and say, hello, I would like to log into 365. And it goes, hang on, you've actually got an ADFS server. You need to talk to these guys first. So she would come back and she would say, hello, I'd like to log on here. And what it does, the ADFS looks through something called its claim list. It's a list of rules. So can this user log on? Okay. So it looks through the list and it says, yes, this user can log on, and it generates an outgoing claim token, a SAML token, okay? A cookie, yes? And it generates this cookie, passes this token along to, and you, being Office 365, look at this and go, this is properly formatted, there's an acceptance token. So the user then says, okay, hello, I'd like to log in with my acceptance token. And of course, all of this happens in the blink of an eye. That's exactly how ADFS works, right? In a nutshell, all right? So, setting it up, the key thing is DNS. So on the local server, you create a DNS record for the name of the server that's going to host the DNS service. And on your live DNS server, your public DNS server, you create the same record again, but points to your live public IP address. Now that you've done that, this is where AD Connect makes it really simple. So at the moment, we're in sync mode, and I'm just going to change the way the users sign in, okay? And I'm going to say, okay, again, just log into my Azure AD, my Office 365 admin account, okay? I've just realized, by the way, I put way too many slides in this deck, so I'm going to have to miss some out, but I'll make sure that you get them, okay? And again, do you want to, I want to federate this time. So I want to federate, okay? Yep, so I'm going to federate. And you can see the requirements, okay? Windows Server 2012 R2 for this particular version of Azure AD Connect. Okay, so it says, okay, you need a digital certificate. So we need to put the digital certificate in. So here's my digital certificate. Put in my password. And select the subject name, so FS, Federation Service. That's what we call the DNS record in the certificate. So we select that. And that goes in. And the name of your ADFS server is going to be called Server 2 in this case. Okay. Put in my credentials for Server 2. Okay. And password, and then I'm going to click OK. Alrighty, and you can see it resolves it. So then we go next. So you can have a web application proxy. So this is kind of, it's considered good practice not to have your external users come through a direct ADFS server. So it's a good idea to have a proxy. Now, again, you could just put the IP address of a proxy in here. For the purpose of this demo, I'm just going to bypass this, all right? But it's good practice that you would do that, all right? So I'm just going to click Next. Okay? Okay, so next, put in your domain admin credentials. So this is my on-prem /admin in this case. Put in my password. Looking good. And again, I also need to put in that service account that I created. So that was the ADFS service. Do you remember? This basically just means that you don't use like a regular user account. A service account, the password, whenever you change the admin account, the password for the service account changes. So it just means that there's no inconsistencies. That's the reason why we use this. Okay, so we're done. Again, for what domain? So this will automatically fill in. There's only one domain anyway, so it will just go off and search for it. Click on the drop-down arrow, and there's our domain. So this is our live domain name, of course. We click on Next. So, now you can see what's happening here. It's saying this managed domain name will be converted to a federated domain name. Okay? So, yep, I'm happy with that. Off we go. Happy to configure and install. Okay? And that's it. We're now in full federation mode. Okay? What does that mean? It means pure single sign-on. So when the user logs on in the morning on their computer, opens a browser, goes into Outlook, it just goes straight through. They're not prompted for another username and password. Okay. By the way, Federation Services requires port 443. It does indeed. There we go. Okay. You know, I'm kind of running out of time. I'm kind of 75 minutes, but it's okay. I'm in the next session. I'll show you this demo because it's good. This is a brand new feature, okay? So the problem with ADFS is it's quite complex, yes? You need to think about it, Check this out. Okay, this is called PTA, pass-through authentication. This is new and shiny. So again, we're back in sync mode. Again, I'm choosing change the way the users log in, but check this out. I put in my Azure credentials, I click next. Okay, then it says to me, okay, it will actually detect our domain name, yes? So I'm choosing this time pass-through authentication, okay? And I'm enabling desktop single sign-on, okay? So if you've got Windows 8 plus, Windows 10, whatever, and they're domain-joined machines, so within your company, then I'm just adding the server credentials here, the Forest credentials, okay? And check it out. I click next, and that's it. We're now in full single sign-on mode. Just hold on. Can I just do the demo? The last couple of things you need to do is there is a web proxy address that you need to put in, all right? Again, I'll make sure that there's slides on this. I'll make sure that you get all of this. So Internet Explorer, you need to go into the security settings, and in the security settings, it's called the zone to transfer list. And essentially, when there's any calls that bounce to your organization, it goes through this Microsoft proxy, the Azure proxy service. So then when Bob signs in, you've got full single sign-on. Okay, without ADFS, without certificates, without DNS records, without anything, okay? And you'll just see Bob coming in here in a second. I know I'm running slightly over, I do apologize. But it's worth it, trust me. Okay, so GP update / force. Okay, and now you'll see Bob log in. Okay. Or Aidan, I should say. So Aidan logs in, goes to his portal. Like I say, guys, I do apologize. I've got way too much stuff in here. I should have cut this. I'll make sure that you've got everything, okay? Yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. It's a 5-day course, you're right. So you see Bob just logs in, straight in. There's no additional password. That absolutely rocks. I'll take questions at the end, okay. Monitoring, troubleshooting, of course, you can do all of this through the admin portal. The admin portals, you can monitor the service health. You can also put put support calls in and so on. There's also the blogs. There's the Office 365 roadmap. Definitely take a look at that. There's absolutely loads and loads of resources. There is books, courses, practice tests that you can do here today. So again, I've just listed a few of those things here. There's the official Microsoft course. There's the practice tests that you can take here. And you can also do the self-paced labs, and I'm running way out of time. Because I'm going to get shot. There's people giving me evil stares at the back of the room. Have you found it useful? Yeah? Just to say, these are my other sessions here. I'm doing Defense Against the Dark Cloud Arts. It was full yesterday, but we're doing a repeat on Thursday. I'm doing a So You Want to Be an MVP session later. And right after this, we're going to do the 347. By the way, did I mention I've written a book? Okay, so I'm a sci-fi thriller author. This is my book, The Seventh Day. It's doing very nice, thank you very much. It's Highlander meets the Da Vinci Code. And just in about a month's time is the sequel called Shadows Rising, okay? So this will be out in a little while. But you've been absolutely awesome. Thank you so much, thanks.